Hello there, my name is Jared Mello, and this is another episode of Everything Eccentric. And today, I have a guest. Her name is Alex the Witch.
Hello, hello.
She practices witchcraft, and so I'm very excited to speak to her for a little while too. But if you follow Alex on Instagram or Facebook or wherever else she is, please give my channel a like, subscribe, Mellow Mentoring here. It'd be great to have you. I usually talk about psychology, mental health, self-improvement type stuff. But I also do this series, which is called Everything Eccentric, where I talk to people that have done things off the beaten path. I've had hypnotists on here, mental health advocates, addiction advocates, musicians, just all sorts. So that's that. But to break the ice here with Alex, I've been trying to find someone to demonstrate this game with. It's called the Cube Personality Game.
I'm ready.
And we're going to play with her real quick. And just to demonstrate the power of this game, we'll see how it goes. So the first thing you got to do is you picture yourself looking into a blank white room. There's nothing in it.
Okay.
And just remember, there's no right or wrong answers to this game. It's just whatever you think of is the right answer.
All right, I'm ready.
So the first thing you're going to put in this room that you're looking into, you're not in it, is a cube.
The cube is in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you have your cube?
Mm-hmm.
So a couple things I'd like to know about the cube. How big is it in relation to the room?
It's small. I would say about this size.
Okay. And what is the cube made out of?
Plastic.
Plastic. Hard plastic, soft plastic?
Hard.
Hard plastic. Is it any specific color?
At first, I was thinking of a white cube, but I'm leaning more. It's kind of turning into a lightish purple.
So darker, so lightish purple then.
Lightish purple. Lightish
Okay.
purple.
And where is this cube in the room? Is it on the floor, in the air?
It's right in the center of the floor. Right in
It's
the
on
middle
the floor,
of the room.
though?
Yes, it's on the floor.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that from you.
Why?
I'll tell you in a minute. Next, picture some flowers in the room now too.
Okay.
So a couple things about the flowers. How many flowers are there?
A lot.
And where are they in relation to the cube?
What are they in relation to the cube? Well, the first flower that came to my head was a white oleander.
Okay.
Which also happens to be one of my favorite books and movies.
And all the flowers are the same type?
At first, yeah. But then I'm seeing chrysanthemums, I'm seeing sunflowers, roses,
All
everything
sorts.
all around. Yeah.
Are they close to the cube or far away? Or everywhere?
Like a jungle.
Interesting.
Like hanging from the ceiling, on the window, like, all around the room.
Everywhere.
But they're kind of far away from the cube.
Interesting. All right, so 3 more things we're going to ask about here. Next, picture a ladder in the room now too.
Okay.
All right, so once you have your ladder, there's 2 things I'd like to know about it. How tall is the ladder?
Tall.
Tall. And is it close or far away from the cube?
Far.
Far, okay. So 2 more things. Next, picture a horse in the room now too.
A horse. Okay.
So a couple things about the horse here. If you had to describe the personality of the horse in a few words, how would you describe it? Personality though, not physical traits.
Personality. He's quiet and he's soft. He's a boy. He's male. Dark. And kind of mysterious. Has a very relaxing, calm, mellow. You could just talk to him for hours and he'll listen.
Is this horse tied up or does it have a saddle?
No.
No. And is it close or far away from the cube?
Everything is far away from the cube.
I have my suspicions as to why that might be.
Why?
I'm going to tell you in a second. So next, picture a thundercloud in the room now too.
Okay, there's a lot going on in this
It's the
room.
last thing going on in the room.
Okay.
So we got a thundercloud. You got it? So 2 things I'd like to know about the cloud. How big is this cloud in relation to the room?
It's not that big.
Not that big.
It's small.
And is it over anything in particular?
In the right corner.
Is there anything under it? Some of the flowers, perhaps?
Yeah, well, because the flowers are everywhere. I'm picturing a jungle-like kind of room.
Okay.
But as far as the cloud, it's in the right corner. And it's drizzling a little bit.
Okay. So here's what it all means. So the
Break
cube,
it down.
The cube is supposed to be how you look at yourself.
Okay.
The bigger cube you would have, the bigger ego you would have. Smaller cubes, smaller ego. Sometimes bigger cubes mean you're more arrogant and cocky. Sometimes smaller cubes mean you're a little more insecure or have lower self-esteem. So you have a smaller cube, which means you don't have a big of ego. It might mean you have insecurities. It might mean that you have lower self-esteem, yet to be seen. The fact that your cube is made out of harder plastic means that's supposed to demonstrate the strength of your boundaries. So, your boundaries are pretty good, which is a good thing. Some people will say things like cardboard or soft plastic or glass. So someone that had the cube made out of glass, I say to them, you have boundaries, but they're probably breakable. Right? Someone with cardboard, they're all out of whack. They probably need a stronger boundaries. The strongest I've ever heard was someone told me steel once. Guy Jordan Peterson told me steel. So he had really good boundaries, of course. The fact that your cube is on the ground, I don't believe this one, and I think you made up for it in other answers, but usually cubes that are on the ground mean that you're a down-to-earth person with math and science, that kind of thing, reasonable, but I don't think that's really too much you. I would have expected your cube to be more in the air, because usually when your cubes are in the air, you're more creative, but also more crazy. That's like usually the trade-off.
Those two come together, yes.
And then, what else do we have? Oh, the color. So purple, that's more of a color of royalty. Darker colored cubes in general, darker. They're people who are harder to get to know. They pretend to wear masks, pretend to be people they're not, and be chameleons. Lighter colored cubes, especially transparent, clear cubes, they just are who they are. White colored cubes, they also are who they are. They're also a little more innocent. So you said white, and then you said light purple. So I'd say perhaps a little bit of both of those things. Perhaps a little bit of changing personality that might signify to me. The flowers are supposed to represent your friends. The more flowers you have, the more friends you have. Now, you have all sorts of flowers. In fact, I've never heard someone say they've had so many flowers before. But you did say something very interesting. You said everything is far away from your cube. So all of these things are supposed to be how close or how far you keep that thing to you in your life. Or if it's like your ambitions, as the next question will tell you, is that close or far? So you have a bunch of them, but when someone has a bunch of flowers, it's really difficult to keep all of those people really close to you. There has to be some sort of buffers. And you have all sorts of varieties of flowers, which means you probably have friends in all different kinds of social circles, etc.
Oh, yes. That is accurate, yes.
And so then the ladder is supposed to represent your ambition in life. The taller your ladder is, the more ambition you have. So very tall ladder for you, lots of ambition. The distance between your ladder and your cube, how close or how far your ambitions are to you. So you got a little bit of a distance between your ambitions and where you want to be, which is normal.
That's very interesting. And I've never heard of this game before either, so.
I'll tell you, I play with hundreds of people. It works like magic often. Horse represent your significant other, or what you would look for in a significant other. So you said, remind me again what you said. You said quiet, talk to for hours, easy to speak with.
Yes,
and what
mysterious.
Was the last one? Still tall, dark, mysterious.
Yeah. And what I mean, well, in a person, I get attracted to the. It varies honestly, but I like kind of the quiet one that doesn't say much. I feel like that means that they're more intelligent. I know, and people say that people that talk a lot are not intelligent. And the quiet ones that don't say anything, they know. They're just sitting there, they know, they observe, they're quiet. And that means they're more intelligent. I'm in the middle. I like to talk. I talk a lot, all the time. But I'm very open. I'll say anything and anything, how I'm feeling at all times, what I'm thinking to anyone, ever. But I know how to keep my mouth shut, though, when I need to, when I just observe. So I don't know how I feel about that. It's kind of like...
I'll tell you what I think about that.
What?
There's been things recently I've thought of. I have this book, Radical Self-Respect, coming out. And I've noticed a couple things. People who seem to talk a lot, it's almost like they're trying to get the approval of others, and they're trying to impress them the more they speak. So it's something that they kind of sub-communicate. The people who are really talkative, it's like they're approval-seeking or just trying to impress. Either way, it comes from a place of insecurity, I think. And I think often, not always, nothing is always, but often I can see it. But I think a lot of it can also have to do with tone of voice, right? The way someone's speaking. Because if you have a calm tone of voice, it's not going to come off like you're approval-seeking or insecure. But some people, they just have that like talking at you thing versus talking with you thing.
Yes.
And I think that's part of it too. And someone who's quiet, it can come off like they don't want someone's approval. It can come off like they're confident with who they are. They're not trying to prove anything to anyone.
Exactly.
They just are who they are. Now, it's not always the case.
Right.
But it can appear to be the case.
Right. Or they're just shy.
It could be shy.
That could be. And then I feel like for me, well, for most of my life, I have been very insecure. I went down the drug road, of course. I had lots of issues. But I've come to a point now where I'm kind of at a spiritual peak, and I've kind of found inner peace. I mean, not 100%, and I'm not a master because I never want to master anything. I want to always be teachable, always be learning, always be growing. But I'm at a place now that I'm at a high level of self-esteem that I've ever had in my life.
Now, what was the reasoning? I guess we'll get back to the game later. But what was the reasoning for you going back to, why did you start doing drugs in the first place? Was there some sort of thing? You were self-medicating? Was it boredom?
What started it? Well, we're going to have to go back a long way. Well, I mean, this is an argument all the time that people think that addiction is a disease, and it's not. I mean, that's a huge thing. And I think for me personally, I was born an addict. And as I look back, I mean, you could see the signs clearly from when I was a little kid. Everything was to the extreme. Everything was obsessive. I would get obsessed with things. Not just, oh, I really like this. No, I'm obsessed, a full-blown obsession. And, you know, there's the family issues. I was an only child, and I didn't feel like, you know, I had anyone. I didn't think I could talk to my parents. And I always also had this calling for drugs. People are like, why would you even start in the first place? But it's like yes, it is my fault. I chose to pick up the drug, but I feel like that drug was calling to me. I wanted it. I still have it. I have a list of, when I was like 15, 14, a list of everything I wanted to accomplish. And one of the first ones on there was to try every single drug before I turned 16.
Oh, that's a hefty goal.
Yeah,
and
it happened. And it happened.
Okay.
I accomplished it. Not a very good goal, but it happened. But you know what? I don't regret any of it. I am proud of my addiction, all the horrible things I've done. I have done disgusting, disgraceful. I was a horrible human being. I mean, yes, I'm remorseful. I feel bad for, you know, robbing my family and making my mother cry and all those things. But without all of that, I would not have my son. I would not be where I am right now. I wouldn't have found myself, my spirituality, anything that I'm doing right now. None of that. Without that, none of this would have happened.
Is there any specific drugs in particular that really called to you the loudest?
Heroin, the good old opiates in general. Yeah, that was one of my first loves, yeah. I mean, I loved it. I was a garbage head, so, I mean, I would take anything. You gave me a pill, I don't even know what it is, I was going to take it. But the monster, the demon, the love of my life was opiates.
And did it like help with anxiety, depression? Did you have any of those things?
Everything. It helps with literally everything.
I thought it did for me too.
Pain, like emotional and physical.
Yes.
And just the first rush. I can still feel, I can taste it, I can feel, I can smell it when I think about it, that exact day. The summer in the backseat of a car, I remember there was a bumblebee in the backseat. I mean, I could go back to that exact moment and the first time, and this was the first time I shot up. And I mean, I had been snorting it for a while, but that was the first time I actually used the needle, which I think is a totally different ball game. I mean, doing it in general is bad, but I think once the needle's involved, you know, it really fast decline.
So you have a good vivid memory, and you can remember all this in detail. And
Absolutely.
And you're a writer, though, too, besides doing the witchcraft thing, which we'll get to in a minute. But you're a writer, too, right?
Yeah. And I always have been, ever since I could pick up a pen. It's always just been one of those things that just came naturally to me. And how I speak is completely different from how I write. Like, people say, like, the only way I can get what's out of my head is by singing or by dancing or whatever it is that they do. Writing's that thing. Writing is that was another drug of choice for me. But while I was using drugs, I couldn't write anymore. And
So
when I did write, I mean, I was able to write for a while, but then it got to the point where I was so sick and I couldn't anymore. And that's when I was like, this is killing me. But it didn't stop me. Nothing stopped me until I got pregnant. And my son, he saved my life. And I know that's a cliche. Every mother says that. But he literally did. In every way a person can be saved. Because right before I found out I got pregnant, I was about to relapse.
Uh-huh.
Yep. I had been sober. I was in rehab. I was living in a halfway house. And I had no reason to live, no reason to get clean. At a very low point in my life. I didn't care about anybody. And I got pregnant. I quit smoking cigarettes. I got off all like my medications and it was the first time I was completely just with my brain since 13. Just me alone with my brain and a bunch of hormones and going through a huge dramatic change. But I mean, without Viper, my son, without him, I know for a fact I would be dead.
Must have been pretty much a shock to the system to have no mind and mood altering shit in there after
over a decade.
After a decade of having some shit in there.
Yeah, because they started putting things in my brain, and the doctors with like antidepressants and things, at probably around 13. So my brain didn't stand a chance. I mean, it didn't develop naturally. So, like, I don't know if I really was depressed. Was I just an emotional teenage girl? Or was I depressed and just had this mental illness? I mean, I don't know. And I'll never know now. Because I've been a guinea pig for antidepressants, anti-anxieties, anti-fucking everything since I was about 13, when your brain starts to develop more.
Well, I'll say this about it. I know you and I are both fellow Pisces people.
Yes.
And I've noticed that I don't believe in a lot of the things that the astrology stuff says, but I do notice most Pisces do tend to be very similar. I have noticed that part. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed Scorpio is usually similar to each other too. But other than that, I can't say much about it. But a lot of Pisces people, they like their fantasy, they like their escapes.
The dreamers. And they're also the most emotional of the signs.
I could see that, because I know, like you, I think around puberty, really, is when it started for me. But that severe, it wasn't depression then, it was more anxiety. It was extreme insecurity. And, you know, like you, drugs was the only thing that really made that shit go away.
Right.
And so at that point, it's like, when your baseline is suffering, it's like, who can blame someone for wanting to escape their baseline suffering, is what I say.
Right. I totally agree.
Now, the antidepressant shit, I think that's way overprescribed. Right, and the doctors.
Oh my God! All of it is the
whatever.
Adderall, the Xanax. I mean,
and that's even younger. They start people on Adderall.
Yes.
5 years old, 6 years old.
No,
7.
I would never do that to my. All 5-year-olds seem to have ADHD.
Especially the boys. Well, they treat boys like they're deficient girls these days. A lot of times.
Boys are much. Like they're wired differently when they're young. Like my son is absolutely out of his mind, and my friends that have daughters, they're just playing in the corner with their dolls, brushing their hair, and my son's running around licking trees, jumping off stuff.
They're very well behaved, the girls, but the boys, they try to give them all these stimulants. And I know that you actually know what stimulants do. They turn off the play circuit in the brain, so that when they've done experiments on rats, they give them amphetamines. They don't play with each other anymore. They don't hang out and have fun. They stop doing rat fun games. But when they don't give them the stimulants, like an Adderall or a Ritalin or a Vyvanse or whatever, they continue to play and they have fun. So they say those amphetamines, they turn off the play circuit. It's not good. So that's why I say it can't be too good for kids. But back to like the depression thing, to me, I think there's so many natural things that could help. Because I do believe it's called organic mental illness, I think. Right? You have like an upbringing that perhaps had some trauma, perhaps some abuse, but just ultimately though, the neurotransmitters in your brain are like just a little not firing right. And I think that's how it was for me. but then you start introducing supplements or other drugs to the system, and all of a sudden it's like they kick in a way they never did before.
Right.
Similar to how people would say, like, oh, I played music and that shit turned on, or I created something and that shit turned on.
Yes.
Similar to that.
Exactly. And there's a lot of cliches like, oh, if you're depressed, just go outside. You know, that'll fix it, all that stuff. There are holistic ways that can, I mean, maybe not cure your depression, but it can absolutely help. But when you're young and you're 13, you don't want to listen to that shit. You don't want to hear, go outside. And those feelings are real when you're young. Like
right.
I wanted to die. And people were like, you don't even know what depression is. You're 13. You don't know what it's like to suffer. You haven't even lived yet. And I always felt like I've had many different lives. And I, very young, was kind of, I guess, wise, And I had that deep sadness. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm sad, or like, how the girls all cut themselves to be like, trend. It literally was trendy back in the day. Like, if you weren't throwing up in the bathroom or cutting yourself, like, you were a loser.
Really?
Yeah, for girls, that was a big thing. In middle school, really. So, I mean, and also I think girls are more susceptible to it too, for millions of reasons, to depression. Anxiety, yes. I did have too, but it was mostly that deep internal darkness, that yearning for more.
As someone who's had both, I definitely prefer the depression more than the anxiety. The anxiety is terrible because it involves every social interaction. You can't speak. You're only comfortable with like a very small group of people or in like circumstances you have complete control over. But in my experience, it's like I can either help the anxiety more or help the depression. But by helping the anxiety, it does make the depression worse. But if I help the anxiety, or if I help the depression more, then also the anxiety would get worse too. So
right.
I've learned I settle for just a little bit of depression, and that's just how it is. And it's just like I'd rather have it like this though.
Depression can be addicting too.
It can be.
I loved being depressed, honestly. Now that I look back.
Well, why do you think that is?
That was my security blanket, that safe place, my depression blanket. I would just, I fed off of it. That was one of my first signs of addiction. I loved it. And I also noticed it helped me to write better. It's hard to write from a place of happiness for me. Now it's getting better, but I mean, my whole life I couldn't write if I was happy.
I think Ernest Hemingway said that happiness amongst smart people is the rarest thing he's ever seen.
Yes. Most intelligent people are miserable.
Now, however, I would also challenge you to say, if you like the depression, is it also not possibly a way to avoid responsibility?
Yes.
And to avoid kind of stepping up and taking ownership of your life?
Oh, absolutely.
I can see how it could be used that way for sure.
Absolutely. I didn't want to do all the work to love myself.
Yes.
I was lazy, and I liked being depressed, and I liked being like, woe is me, and I'm miserable, and I want to die. Like that. I liked that.
The old Eeyore routine, as they call it.
I was Eeyore. I was for a long time. And I find myself kind of going back to that place sometimes where I like to sit in my bed and I just kind of sit in my depression and I'm like, no. That's coming off. That blanket's coming off because I will get stuck in that place forever.
What's the dude with the Russell Brand's the guy? He
said he's a genius.
Depression, he said, could also be just deep rest. Your body needs rest so you calm down.
Yes,
and there might not be something wrong with that part of it, I don't think.
Right.
If you're using it as like a recharge.
Yeah, no, I need to be recharged. My favorite time of the day is at night, quiet, Viper's asleep next to me, and I'm just not talking to anybody, and I'm just there. I can meditate, watch one of my good movies. I mean, I'm not a person that likes to go out anymore either. And people will be like, well, you're depressed, you're boring, you're miserable, why aren't you going out? No, I mean, if John Lennon said, time enjoyed wasting is not wasted. And people are like, you're a homebody. Well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with being a homebody? I don't want to go out. I partied enough for 100 years. I don't need to do that. And I love to be at home, and sometimes I do enjoy my depression cocoon, but I know that I can't stay there for long.
At least you're aware of it.
Yeah, no, I've become very self-aware over the years.
Now here's something I'm curious about. Where did the practicing witchcraft thing come into play for you? When did that come about?
Okay, let's start with my family bloodline. So, my great-grandmother on my mother's side, she died when I was very young, but she was a witch. I didn't know, I was probably 5, but I remember going to see her, and she was in a wheelchair, and she had long, dark hair, like down to her knees, and old people never have long hair. I just remember that distinctively, having a beautiful long hair. And, but they said that she was clairvoyant. She did a lot of witchy stuff, and I didn't really learn more. I didn't learn more about it until I got older. But when she died, we had to go, and I remember the family had to sell her house and go through all her stuff. And I found all these beautiful witchcraft books and Wicca books and all these like old, like somewhere from like the 1800s. I mean, so nice. And I've always had that pull towards that kind of stuff. Always.
Magic.
Yes. Always.
Spells.
Yes. Always. And I think I'm more like my great-grandmother than anybody else. So I still have all those books. I took them all of them. I still have some of her palm stones, everything. But I'm going to get it.
Did she have a shawl over her eyes when she was born? 'Cause I hear that's sometimes like a sign of second sight, they call it. Do you know?
That I don't know.
Then check into that.
I will. She was clairvoyant. She did a lot of things. And back then, people would say that she was nuts. They ended up locking her up. They did a lot of horrible shit to psych patients back then. So I remember going to see her in the place that she was at, and I think it really, really affected my grandmother. So, and my grandmother's knocking on heaven's door. She's getting old there now. But she saw kind of what it did to her mother.
Guns N' Roses, huh?
Yes. She saw what it did to her. So my grandma wants nothing to do with it, witchcraft at all. And when she found out that I was really, really getting into it strong, it made her sick. And I think it also did affect my mom too, because she saw what it did to her mom and whatever. So I guess it skipped those 2 generations because I didn't see everything that my great-grandmother went through. And I feel closer to her than anybody else. And I don't even really know her. I was 5.
Right.
But I feel like I do know her. And I do a lot of ancestry magic work too. And I try to connect with her. I actually just recently, the past few months, got into that. So I do a lot of stuff like trying to bring up ancestry and ancestor magic.
What is that all about?
It's connecting with your ancestors, ultimately.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many different types of paths that you can go down. There are hedge
medium?
witches. Is it like, well, I mean, yeah, you could do like necromancy stuff, working with the dead, that kind of thing.
Is that what being a medium is?
Medium, you're able to communicate with the dead, yeah. That's what a medium is. And then you can practice necromancy, and there's Ouija boards and all that kind of stuff. Ancestry magic. I mean, there are things that I work with. I don't pray, because praying to me seems like begging. Like, oh, please, God, help me with, I don't like that. I don't like that idea. And don't even get me started on religion, because I'll go on forever. But I don't pray. So I work with, that's what I'll call it. I'll work with ancestors, the universe, I will call it the divine, my spirit guides, my angels. I just call it my tribe. Everything together. And my ancestors are part of that tribe. So whenever I'm doing any kind of magic, any spell work, anything like that, my ancestors are involved with it. And I've been getting more and more into that lately. But she was the start of it. And I found her books, and I've always, I was researching since I was a little kid about it. I loved Ouija boards. I had sleepovers at my house, and I would scare them all. I had all these haunted dolls. I mean, I just was always kind of drawn to the occult, the scary, the dark, all that stuff.
Do you believe in like demons and spirits?
Of course.
I thought so.
Of course.
Now here's another thing I want to ask you though too. So what are the basic tenets of witchcraft? Like what are the principles that like witches are supposed to adhere to? Like what is the I don't know. What's like the 60-second elevator speech of a witch? What are they going to say?
There's a witch, there's a Wiccan, and there's pagans.
Okay.
Pagan, the term pagan is like an umbrella term for like any nature-based religion. You can be a Wiccan, and most Wiccans refer to themselves as witches, but you can also just be a witch and not a Wiccan.
I see. So there's some overlap there. If
Yeah.
there's like a Venn diagram.
I mean, you could be a Christian and be a witch, but not a Wiccan. Wiccans don't believe in a heaven or a hell. It's a nature-based religion. So if you were a Christian witch, or if you were a Christian Wiccan, that wouldn't make sense. Because they don't believe in God or anything like that.
So I guess, here's the question then. What do witches believe? And what are they trying to accomplish with their beliefs?
Okay. I could go on for a long time because there are countless witch paths, witches, hedge witches, kitchen witches, fae witches, draconic witches, sea witches. You could, like, women that are. No, I'm sorry. Not all witches are women. I mean, most are, but there are males in it too. But you could be like a witch that just focuses on ancestry magic, necromancy witches. I mean, there's a lot, and you can go down any path. I mean, most people I know, and me myself, if I had to identify myself, I'd be an eclectic witch. An eclectic is you pick something from everything. So I do a lot. I do sea magic. I do a little bit of necromancy magic. I do something from everything. A little bit of like a garden witch, like a hedge witch, a kitchen witch, all that kind of. I take it all and make it my own and what works for me.
Now, what has it done for your life, would you say? Or for the life of those around you? I know, like, there's spells and things to cast on people. What is there?
People there's a huge misconception about all of it. A lot of it is, they think that it's evil. But that's because, well, like movies, things like that. Just like love movies exaggerate what love is.
Yes.
So do movies about magic.
Things about like the Salem witch trials.
Well,
in
Salem witch
Massachusetts.
trial. Well, that I could go on about that too. But like the craft, hocus pocus. Yeah, it all has it has a lot of the correct terms and things in it, but like it's exacerbated. Just like love is real, but in all the love movies, it doesn't work that way. They don't.
I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
I agree with
Everything.
that.
So people will connect tarot with you're talking to the devil, and it is so not the case, and it's also has to do with Christians. And I'm sorry if anybody sees this that is a Christian, but I mean, I have had people say to me that I'm going to go to hell for pretty much everything that I do.
Aha.
Pretty much everything. And the reason why witchcraft is looked at in such a negative way is because anything that's anything that's not for God is against God, meaning you're going to go to hell.
I don't like those absolutes though either. I do think there's some truths in every religion.
Yes.
But I also think where every single one of them loses me is when they say theirs is the only right way.
Exactly. And I've studied, I've tried, I've looked into a lot of different religions, and they're all basically kind of the same thing. There's something bigger than ourselves. And when people say that, if you're not a Christian, you're going to go to hell, you're this, you're an unwed mother, you're whatever, you're going to go to hell. No. And I don't know how I feel about heaven and hell. I mean, I think that there's path. I think we have multiple lives, and we learn our lessons. And I've been working with past life magic a lot too recently, and I've been studying that a lot. And there are certain meditations that you can do, and there's a lot of things you can do. But I've looked into this, and I can remember 2 lives distinctly. I mean, not completely clearly, but in pieces.
I've had a hypnotist on here before, and she did past life regressions for people.
Yes.
I know she mentioned one where there was a patient she had, or client, that was severely afraid of moths. And she had to go back, and what it was like one of her ancestors was killed, and the last thing she's seen as she's like dead on the fucking on the sidewalk is the moths around the lamppost. So like in the early 1900s at some point. So I do believe there's some truth in it.
Yes.
Just like I believe there's absolutely some truth in the whole witchcraft thing, and there's things to learn from it, things to benefit. But like, how do you practice it though? Like, what do you do? What are some practicing techniques?
People will say that you have to do it a specific way. You need rosemary for this particular. You need this purple candle. What it ultimately comes down to is that everybody has power and the magic in themselves.
I see.
Everybody does.
I believe that.
And I have come a long way. I do a lot of meditation. I have read a lot of research, practiced for years. I couldn't meditate right away. I couldn't spellcast right away. I mean, my mind's all over the place. It's very hard to silence your mind and turn it off. But once you're able to do that, to actually silence your mind, you can go to a place where you can literally make anything happen. You can align your chakras, open that third eye, all of that. And once you can, and I'm not even saying I'm at the mastery level, but I'm saying I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about now for the most part. And I've reached a point where I had a craziest spiritual awakening. And I can't even really, and I'm good with words and I can't even really explain it. When you open your third eye, there can be negative effects. You could have headaches. You could have hallucinations for weeks. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. But colors started to seem brighter, and just your whole mindset is rewired. And, I mean, I just started a Reiki class, but I've been studying it for a long time. And I've been studying, I mean, I have chakra stuff all over my room, energy, healing, all that kind of stuff. But if you can align from root to crown, perfect. Like, because if something's going on in your root or your sacral, then it'll affect the heart and the whatever. Like, you need to have, if you're completely aligned and in tune, you can make anything happen. If you're doing a spell and you're coming from a place of anger, say you want to hex somebody, because I get messages all the time. How do I hex my ex-boyfriend? How do I do that? And I'm like, okay, well, you're obviously coming from a place of anger, and emotions will interfere with energy, and it's not going to work. You're coming from a place of deep sadness. That won't. You have to cast a spell correctly. You need to be completely grounded, centered, stable, ready to go. And if there is even a sliver of doubt in your mind, because there's the spiritual ego that will come in and be like, no, that's not going to happen. No, you don't deserve this. This isn't real. It'll keep telling you that. And eventually, if you let that spiritual ego take over, it's not going to work. If you can, surrender to and say no, and then completely not have a sliver of a doubt in your mind, anything can happen.
So I'll believe that for the same reason I believe Norman Vincent Peale's book, The Power, the Magic of Thinking Big, where if you want something big, you thank the universe for it in
right,
advance,
the law of
and
attraction,
you envision it.
Right.
Something true about that to me too.
Yeah, and they all kind of align. And I think some people, they can manifest things easier than others.
Sure.
Everybody is born with a psychic ability. Some are more heightened than others. But everybody has it, and this is what I always say all the time. It's like a muscle. You have to practice. You have to work it out.
That brings me to two things. One, I want to know if you just share with us here. What's an example of the last spell you cast, for example? And then two, I want to know how to best exercise that spiritual muscle, the psychic muscle. So what's the spell thing first, though?
Meditation is the biggest thing.
Okay.
And I have research and just practicing it over and over. There are so many. I mean, you really, really have to practice. You can't just be like, oh, can you show me the spell and then I'll go do it? Like, no, that's not going to happen. You need to really know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing and you're coming from a place of you're kind of haywired and you're coming from a negative place and you go and you try to do it, or if there's any doubt in your mind, like, this isn't really going to work. I don't know what I'm doing. This isn't going to work. This isn't real. And any little bit of that is not going to work. Yes. And you can get to that place through practice, through meditation, through crystal healing. You can do it through energy work, tarot, all of the above. And I think meditation, though, is the biggest thing. Meditation has opened so many doors for me. And once I've always been into magic, but my true spiritual, full-on awakening was when I had my son. They went hand in hand. When he was born, I was reborn. That's exactly what it was. The old me died when he was born. It was like he came out and then my soul just left.
It's probably good because it's probably not meant to come back. The old people were supposed to be continuing to grow and become new versions. I think that's how a lot of people get messed up. They try to go back to who they were before some sort of events and transformations, but like you said, it doesn't work.
That's another reason why his name's Viper. I shed that skin. He got a new one. We're all snakes.
Speaking of snakes, I know I spoke to a snake charmer a week or two ago.
Really?
And she said the same thing about aligning of the chakras, and there's something in the energy of your lower back. I can't remember exactly what she said, but she used to be a golf coach. I was on her channel not so long.
A golf coach?
No, it'd be like goth, Goth.
Oh,
and she used that as like her coaching stuff because she wasn't for the life coaching nonsense like the Tony Robbinses of the world, but she was a snake charmer. And it was very fascinating when she was telling me about that, and it reminded me what you just said there. With the very same thing about the snakes shedding skin, becoming new versions of themselves, very similar. But I'm also curious, like what are like faux pas of witches? Like what in the witch community is like against their guidelines or against the rules or things that would be like really frowned upon? Are there anything?
The only rule, the Wiccan read, the main rule is to just do no harm, really. Okay. That's what I mean, like, as above, so below. Do no harm. What you put out there, you will get back. And I mean, there's the power of 3 law, 3 times 3. What you put out there, you'll get back threefold, which I believe.
I believe in that.
But I also believe that you can't be 100% light. You need to have darkness, which gets you. I got into shadow work, which you have to if you're going to do any witchcraft. You have to get into shadow work. You have to be able to hex.
Integrating the shadow, you mean?
You have to hex and
like
you have
Carl
to
Jung
heal.
would say?
What? Oh, yeah.
Integrating the shadow?
Yes.
I believe in that too.
The shadow work, you have to. If you don't do the shadow work and you don't get down in there, all of your pain, all of that darkness, if you don't really work it out, nothing's going to change.
It's got to be integrated. It's got to be integrated into the person you are. Because I think that's the struggle I think a lot of people go through is they have their dark side, they have their light side, and they'll go off into the dark and they can't find a way through it to integrate the two.
Right,
so
which I did
stuck
for
in
years.
drug land, or they say stuck in fill in the blank with whatever vice it is. But I think there's ways. I mean, that's like the movie Pinocchio. There's a little bit of that, if you believe it or not. So what he learned on the Pleasure Island there, the smoking of the cigar, he used that knowledge to get himself out of the whale because he knew, oh fuck, smoke's pretty shitty, so I'm going to make the fire in the belly of the whale. So he used what he learned out there misbehaving to his advantage to save him and his father. So it's similar to that.
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's yin and yang. You got to have both. And there's another misconception that, if you're a white witch, you have to be all white. And for the most part, like I think I'm more I'm a gray witch. Okay. And I think that's the way it should be. You got to be able to. You can't heal if you're not able to hex. And I read this really, really beautiful article that explained it perfectly. But that's basically the point of it, though. You need to be able to get in touch with your dark side. And I don't remember how we even started what were we talking about before this? How did we get to here? I don't know.
I asked you something about the spells you be able to cast recently.
Oh, right. I know. I go off on tangents.
In the witching community.
Yes, yeah. A recent spell. Well, you know what? A spell can be as complex or as simple as you want it to be. Honestly, a spell could be just yourself and your words and your power and your magic and putting it out there. Or you could make it as complex as you want. You can get the specific herbs, the oils, you could do a whole ritual, the correct you could do whatever you want. I use magic literally all day, every day, as much as I can. But I do full out rituals though too, but not all the time. I mean, that's for serious cases. And then I do my little spells. And then I use like magic in everyday life. My words are my spells.
And what's an example of an event or like something you'll use a spell for? It's like, I want to fill in the blank, and then you'll do a spell.
I do a lot of spells for other people.
Okay.
And that, it's very draining. And I do tarot readings for a lot of people too. And I do them online, which is even harder because I'm not with the person. Because I never really have time between school and Viper and my son and everything to go to people and have a full-on session. So I find time, and before I do a tarot reading, I have to do a full-blown meditation. And that could be like a half hour. And I ask my guides, I say, speak to me through the cards, babies. Give me whatever I need to know about so-and-so. I connect, and I will get messages coming through. I write the entire time. Anything, a number, a flower, anything that comes through, anything distinct. And I've learned how to get better with that over the years. And really, I think a hard thing is people ask, how can I tell the difference between my own mind and what my spirit guides are telling me? Am I making it up? Is it imagination? And that's a really good question because I struggled with that at first too. But I'm at the point now where I've distinguished between what's me and then what is coming from my higher power.
How'd you do that? Is it a process unique to you and everyone has to find their own?
Yeah, I think it's unique to everybody. I just know the difference now. At first I was like, you question everything. And I think that's honestly the first step, really, is starting to question. And then you learn. And I get messages constantly asking questions. And I'm like, all I can really tell you is like, what works for me might not work for you. So I can tell you the simple basic rules and what I do and whatever you want. But ultimately, you're going to go down your own journey. You have to do it yourself. You can't follow everything that I do.
Right. Is there overlap with like being a wizard and witch? Is there anything different about that?
Witches and warlocks?
No, not
warlocks. And
no.
Witches and wizards and all that stuff.
Think like Lord of the Rings, and there's wizards, and there's gray wizards and the white wizards and blah blah blah. Is that a similar concept?
I've literally never seen Lord of the Rings.
Never ever?
Never ever.
That actually surprises me from you.
I know.
But
I've never seen Game of Thrones either.
Is there like a concept of wizardry, or is that just like not even a thing?
Well, male witches, actually, a lot of them refer to themselves as warlocks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
You just think of the same freaking as the motorcycle gangs. There's pagan motorcycle gangs, there's warlocks, Hell's Angels.
There's just so much, man. There's so much that goes into it that people don't know. And ultimately, you have to research, and research more. Practice, because you're not going to do a spell correctly right away. Right. You have to align, you have to be centered, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to come from a place of absolute peace. No doubt. Can't come from a place of fear. Because if you're coming from a negative place, that's what you're going to put out there. Right. I post about that. I talk about this all the time. Like, your vibration, your frequency is absolutely everything.
You can't fake your energy.
No, you can't. And the universe recognizes your energy, not your wants and desires.
Now, where does the moon and stuff like that come into play in this?
I love the moon. I do love my moon. Well, in pagan and Wiccan religions, there's 8 Sabbats and there's 12 Esbats. The Esbats have to do with the moon cycles, and each moon cycle each one is different. Like, you could do a certain spell for the full moon. There's a new moon ritual, because there's certain things you can do at certain times that will enhance it, dealing with the moon. And I mean, when people say that the moon has nothing to do with us, I just want to fucking punch them in the face. I mean,
I've encountered some people like this before too. Other witches that were really big into like birth times and things like that.
Yeah, the birth chart, all that kind of stuff, yes. And I mean, I'm not saying that astrology and all that is the end all be all. I like to have an open mind, and I learn from other things, and I think there is more, and there are things that we'll never know. But I think astrology, I'm 100% in love with it, and I totally believe it, and I've studied it, and I love it. But it's not the end all be all, and there is more, because people always like to, argue and question and come back at me with this and this, and I'm like, ultimately, like, this is what I like, this is what I believe, this works for me. I've seen it. I have proof of it, and it makes me happy. It works for me.
Well, part of me also thinks that anything you believe is really going to work, like what you said, you have no doubts, etc. It's going to work. I think it's the same reason why people who really believe prayer works for them. But I also think the way you do with it, I think prayer is not affirmative enough. Mm-mm. It's not assertive enough.
Right.
Or it's more like a desperate plead.
Yes,
as
and
opposed
that's coming from a place of negativity, of lack. You're lacking something. If you're putting out there, I want to be in love, I really want money, I want this, you're not going to fucking get it. You're coming from that place. No, you have love. You have everything you need.
I've learned that you got to act as if, and you got to have the feelings of already having the things you want.
You already have
or you'll never attract them.
And you'll just keep getting more. I already have everything I need. I am full of love. I radiate love. I'm surrounded by a white light, and I'm just going to keep getting more.
Now, one thing I thought of here, too. I know you're a big fan of music. Stevie Nicks, does she do a lot of witch shit? Or what does she do with that?
Stevie Nicks is the white witch.
Is she?
And she doesn't openly really talk about it a lot.
Okay, but she does do it, though.
Yes. Okay. She is known for the white witch. Her music, it speaks for itself. She's very, very much into it. Always has been.
Because she used to be a big drug person, right? I remember seeing something
I feel like so many witches at some point were into drugs.
Most certainly. And then some doctor told her she does one more line of cocaine.
Yeah, she has something wrong with her. Yeah,
a stroke or a seizure. Mm-hmm. Probably a stroke. But then they gave her, I think, Klonopin or something to assist her sobriety. Or
right, she had a huge coke issue. Huge.
But she got through it, though. And then she did Klonopin for a while. And I don't think she does anything now, right?
Yeah, she's sober and clean. Clean and sober. Yeah.
So I guess circling back here, too. Like, what do you do to help yourself nowadays? Do you do anything different? Like, drug-wise? Do you do, I don't know, psych meds, supplements, witchcraft?
All of the above. Well, my son... I haven't touched my drug of choice. I haven't had a needle in my arm in about 3.5 years. So he's 2. So it was before I got pregnant. You're basically pregnant for a year. So he's over. So yeah, like 3.5 years. It was before I got pregnant. Yeah, it's huge for me. I've never had 3 months ever.
Right. I know for me, I take a lot of supplements. Kratom is really the only drug-like thing I really do anymore. I'll have booze. I'll have beer. Do you drink still?
I've never really been a big drinker, but I will have wine here and there, yeah. Okay. And when I do, it's not much at all because it makes me feel sick. And I don't like it.
I think there's a Kratom, too. Because I notice if I drink, the next morning I do Kratom.
Do you drink Kratom every day?
Every day.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Me too. And I think that's another thing that saved my life.
I think you might have this in common with me. But I've learned that I'm probably BPD. Borderline personality disorder, and so it explains a lot why I had those constant feelings of emptiness, the anxiety, the risky behaviors.
No, I think you do too. I can just I can feel it from you. Literally, it radiates off of you.
What is?
Your BPD.
Is that good or bad?
I don't think I look at mental illness as kind of like a blessing and a curse.
It can be used as such.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yes.
But I think the routine I have now has calmed it. And what Kratom's done for me, it's given me the ability to not have to act out extremely. Because that's what I used to do. I'll be good for a while. It's kind of like the Muppets. You watch Animal on the drums and the slow song is like ta ta ta.
Right.
Ta, ta.
Well, it's
but he can't handle it. It's like ta 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 ta.
Yeah. No, I know it.
And then I would maybe do gambling, or I would do like
you're switching addictions. Yes, switching addictions.
But now it's like, the only way I really act out is beer. And it's like, that's all I do. I accept it.
What do you mean act out? Like you go nuts?
Well, not act out, I would say. It's just like, it's just my little escape. Look like that way. Because I think everyone needs some vices.
I mean, whatever keeps you from doing the hard shit, I think is great.
Well, because you can't even do any hard shit now. You do heroin or even cocaine now. Who knows if it's laced with fentanyl and you go die.
That too.
So that's I don't think I would do it anyway, but when I heard those things, it's like, yeah, I just don't have a desire to go do those things anymore.
And I look at my son and I can't.
Right. Well, because what I want in life now it's more about relationships. It's more about getting places with my career and doing my missions. Like, that's more important than any feeling to me. And so now, like, I do Kratom, and it keeps me behaved. It keeps me under wraps in a way that it's maintainable. And that's something that wasn't really there before.
Keeps the cravings at bay.
Sure.
Too. And pain. Physical. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for it. I mean, like everything, it has downfalls, but...
Of course.
And like anything, if you take it a lot, you will have a withdrawal effect.
Well, it's just like a coffee would have withdrawal.
This is kratom right here. Like, I mean, it's...
Now, everything's going to have a withdrawal, but it's not going to be nearly as severe as heroin or methadone or Suboxone.
And people have said that it is. Yes, me too. Methadone is the worst. Oh,
I would say so.
Oh, I had to be hospitalized because of the withdrawal. But anyway, I'm a huge advocate for kratom. I've always said kratom because that's how I was, when I first heard it, that's what somebody said to me, and then it's always just been kratom.
Well, how about this? People do get caught up in the fact, oh, you're just taking something every day. And I say, hey, people who are taking psych medicines, what's the difference between
I'm on medicine. I'm on a lot of different medicine.
What I've learned is I don't care what people need. Whatever's going to make them the happiest, healthiest version of themselves. That's all I care about.
Happiest, healthiest version of yourself.
And that's really what it comes down to. Because I used to go to AA, NA kind of things, and there's not what I believed when I was going there. I turned very judgmental there.
Yeah.
And that was maybe just me. Maybe it doesn't happen to everyone.
Yeah, if it works for somebody, that's great. That's great if it works for somebody. But I would do the anything for a while, and it's like church. It's like, it doesn't stick. It's like a cult.
Right. Well, a lot of things are cults.
Yes.
I think yoga could be a cult.
Well, yeah. I think
CrossFit can be a cult.
Anything can be.
Jiu-jitsu can be a cult. There's also veganism can be a cult. Christianity can be a cult. Witchcraft could probably be a cult. Just in the fact that it all depends on how severe it is. Like, I think what the line is when you try to separate yourself from the outside, as opposed to trying to connect with the outside, because that's really what the cults really do. They isolate.
Yeah, that's what I think of as a cult.
And you tell them you're different from other people. Right. You're not like them. They're not like you.
Right.
And you got to get. And what it does, it serves as a mechanism to get closer to the people inside the group. So there's many variations of that, many degrees of that. I bet you there's probably some witches who adhere to that part of it, but it doesn't mean they all do. I think I've seen it the worst in religion type cults, right? And the veganism cult, that's another one. They're always trying to get people. I didn't
really think of that as a cult. Wow.
But that's what they are. They're all ideologies.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I guess, yeah.
Well, so you go into a person who's vegan, they get really into it. And they'll tell you, like this one woman was telling me to read a book, How Not to Die. And basically all it was, don't fucking eat meat or you're going to die.
Yeah, right,
and she was a nurse.
You're going to die, you're going to go to hell, whatever. This is the only way to do it.
But what I don't like about things like that is, what did I say? Oscar Wilde said, like, selfishness is not living how you want to live. It's trying to get others to live as you live. And it's like, I just let it go.
I can't. I posted a video, I think it was even this morning. It was just something about like vampire fangs. It was cool. The comments on there, they're from the Christians. I mean,
they don't like vampires?
These people they're just broken and lost and they need God and they're all gonna die and they're devil worshippers. It's fucking teeth. I mean, anything. I'm not going to go on a Christian tangent because I'll be here all night.
Your description of how you saw things as different colors and being more enhanced and vibrant reminded me of Interview with the Vampire with Brad Pitt. That's what he was mentioning when he transformed into a vampire, how he was seeing everything through his new vampire eyes, seeing things that were not there before, or just seeing things more enhanced or vividly. It's interesting.
Yes, you literally do, though. And I've gotten better at seeing auras. And I've
heard about them. So people say I got a greenish or bluish one. I don't know.
My Reiki teacher, since I started massage therapy school, it was only a few months ago, but I never had Joelle, who's the Reiki teacher, as my teacher. But I've always seen her there. She teaches another class. But my main teachers are different. But Joelle, the second I saw her, nothing but purple. And I said this to her.
What's
and
purple
she said the same thing about me. Well, purple is the most spiritual, most creative. Also the most emotional. And they actually connect a lot of Pisces with purple, too.
I can see that.
But I think I'm purple. And I saw it, and I don't see it I don't see the aura on everyone. But with her, God, it was like just the huge orbs surrounding her are just bright, vibrant purple. And I don't see it on everyone though. But with her, it was really strong. And I've had a few instances with people where it's been really strong. And then there's other times where it's light. And then sometimes it's nothing at all. I'm not seeing anything right now.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm telling you that I could feel though. Like I could feel your BPD.
Oh. Well, I think the worst way BPD comes out to me is in romantic relationships.
I mean, you don't even have to say anything. I could literally feel it.
Well, what I'm going to say, for the people who can't feel it like you do, is that when you fall in love with someone super hard, and then you get that fear of abandonment, or the black and white thinking, or the lack of object constancy, but there's no more poisonous, toxic mesh than the BPD person with a narcissist.
Oh,
now that's, to me, that ruined me. And the woman, maybe you watch this.
Well, anybody with a narcissist ruins them.
But the
I didn't
BPD
let
person
it ruin me, though.
in that though, it's like this the toxic mesh where it's like, I saw through the girl. I was like, I know what you're fucking doing. I know everything that's underneath this. And I was tempted to want to be there unconditionally for her because I knew what was going on. But she just did too many disrespectful things. She did too many things that were just careless.
I think narcissist is a word that gets thrown around too much, though. Also.
It is, but this girl absolutely was.
Absolutely. That's what they all say, though. Oh, this person, there's narcissistic tendencies. Well, and there's like narcissist disorder, like a diagnosis.
Well, here's the disorder. They don't know how to tell the truth. They're always either the hero or the victim in any story they tell.
They make you seem crazy.
They gaslight. They love bomb. They devalue. They discard. Yeah, I agree with you. Narcissism's thrown around, but there certainly is cases where that's really exactly what is going on. But the girl I was thinking of, I never felt that way about anyone, ever. And now that she's gone, I could talk to people, but something inside of me, I just don't feel it for anyone really anymore. It's like, maybe it just means I'm good with me. And it's more of a healthy, mature love, maybe. Yeah. As opposed to like needing someone else, perhaps.
Yes, that's the worst. My first few loves were like that. It wasn't a real love. Because you can't love unless you love yourself. And I didn't love myself. That's a cliche, whatever, but that's an absolute fact.
That's sad though, because when you need those other people, I think it feels different. It feels like an addiction.
Yeah,
you need that person. But then once you're more independent, like it's just not going to be the same. You don't need them anymore. And it's not like that fairy tale that Disney would portray. It's like, and I think that's the struggle. It's like you're brought up on all these romantic movies, Disney movies. You're expecting something to be all better when you meet someone. And I'm a guy who even thought this way. Guys aren't supposed to think this way.
And you're a Pisces guy too.
Well, that's a problem. Yes. And so that's what happened. So now it's like I've gotten through that. The girl who did that, it made me a better version of myself. I'm stronger now, more assertive. I thought of a book because of it. But now it's like I gotta like move on through that and know that there is no person out there that's gonna make everything all better.
No.
It's not some soulmate, not the one, no nothing. It's like you just gotta be good with your own life, dude.
Yeah, you can find someone to be a band-aid.
It's kind of depressing, actually, is what it is. To me, it's like it's when your vices stop working. You're like, oh, I'm doing all this. It's like whenever the pickup artists. I was listening to The Game by Neil Strasser last night, and he was talking about how like all the PUEs come to Jesus moment where it's like, oh, I'm putting all my effort just to find women in validation, but that's not where I'm going to find it. Did you know I stayed with Neil Strauss in Malibu for a couple weeks?
I did not.
I did.
You've been all over.
I have.
You're meeting everyone.
I'm pretty lucky. Well, I joined his group for $200, and I did him like 2 monthly donations, and then he put on an email blast, hey, I want someone to help me out with my routine. And so I answered it, and I get a call the next day, and he's just like, how about you come out to Malibu and stay in my place for 2 weeks?
And then you were able to just go like that.
I went, well, that's why I need the freedom to do all the shit I want to do.
Yeah.
I can't have the normal jobs.
Right.
Because I wouldn't be able to do that.
A single mom can't do that shit.
No, it'd be very difficult.
But I dream about it.
But I did it, and I was there in 2
I'm a
weeks.
dreamer.
For 2 weeks, I met all these. It's just a celebrity. It's just a different way of life out there. But back to the point here, it's like you realize that, man, your sense of completion is not going to be found in another person.
No, not with any.
And it's disappointing.
Yeah, not a person, not a substance, nothing. That's why spirituality is so important.
Yes.
I also have this big fear of my parents dying. Ever since I was little, that's been one of my biggest things. And as I'm getting older and I'm coming closer to that realization, and they're getting older and it's going to happen soon, and I realize I need to be okay alone. My parents cannot be my everything. Right. I have to learn how to be okay alone, and for my son. So the spirituality, the spells, witchcraft, all of that made me such a better person. And it's always been there. It just didn't really come out until I had my son. That's what it took. Because drugs were in the way.
I think for women that happens a lot. They have their kid, and it brings them, like the motherly instinct is so powerful that they're able to stop doing drugs. They're able to completely change their lifestyles.
Sadly, not everyone though.
Not everyone.
I know lots of women that.
Many women.
That's I prescribe to Adderall and Klonopin. I'm on those two. I'm on medication. I take the kratom, I don't smoke weed and I don't really drink, but I have my things. But I look at him and I could never, ever go back to the way I was. Hard drug, heroin, shooting up, that lifestyle. I know women that have multiple kids and just still go back.
They do.
If that's not enough, then literally nothing ever will be. I thought I was hopeless. I was hopeless. I didn't know that. I didn't even want kids ever. I had no idea that life would throw me this little seed and that it would change everything and I would be reborn. That was the last thing I thought I would need. I did not. There was nothing else. So the universe was like, all right, we tried enough. This is it. This is what's got to happen. You got to meet this person solely because this little baby needs to be born and only you can do it. And then you guys separate paths, go different ways, and then it's me and Viper.
That makes sense to me. So before we end here, I'll go full circle to go back to the game, because one more thing I had to answer here.
The game.
The horse that I talked to you about, if it's not tied up or have a saddle, it means you don't try to control your partner. The distance between the horse and the cube is how close physically and emotionally you want that person to be to you. So you said the horse was closer to your cube than the ladder and the flowers were, but still not that close.
Right. The cube was very distant from everything else.
So that means you keep yourself distant from everything else to
an
extent.
Been.
And then the thundercloud is supposed to mean the size of the cloud is how much you let your problems affect your life.
And I figured it had something to do like that. Yeah.
And if it's over anything in particular, it means that you have problems in that area. So that's why I was asking if there's anything.
I like that. I like that game. I like that idea.
There's all sorts of games like that out there.
I like that. I know of some of them, but that one I like. I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
I'm taking that from you.
This is accurate. And so there's other games out there. It's like the different kinds of smiles there are. The guessing of a number. Like guess a number from 1 to 20.
Do you want me to say it out loud?
I'll guess what the number is.
You want me to guess or
think of a number between 1 and 20, and let me see if I can guess it. You got a number between 1 and 20?
Yes.
Is it 7?
No.
What's your number?
18.
18. Usually, when someone asks a number between 1 and 20, often it is 7. So that's like your standard go-to.
Oh, really?
Because
yes. That's the last thing that I would choose.
But you're also off the beaten path, though, aren't you, miss?
That I am, my friend.
But hopefully what's not off the beaten path, perhaps if there's people in my audience that would like to contact you or learn more about witchcraft, how can they find you?
I feel like I didn't go on enough. I could go on forever, and I do tarot readings. We should do another one about tarot. I
can always come back on
about that. Yes, I will. What was the question? Oh, how can they contact me? Well, my Facebook is Alex Jane, but Jane is spelled with a Y. AlexJayne. I'm not gonna get my phone number out.
No, I don't need to do that.
Yeah, my Facebook is fine. My Instagram, it's AJ Del Rey because I love Lana Del Rey. But yeah, you can contact anybody. Anybody can contact me.
Speaking of Lana, when I was in Malibu, Rick Rubin, the co-founder of Def Jam Records, he called up Neil Strauss while I was with him, and he goes, "Hey, you want to go out to dinner with Lana Del Rey?"
You told me. Wait, you commented something about that.
I did say that, didn't I? And then Neil Strauss jumped. I see Rick Rubin's Hummer drive down the hill, and Neil just pop right in, and then off dinner they go with Lana Del Rey.
Lana
Del Rey.
I literally cringe when people say Lana.
No, Lana.
But wow, I'm gel.
It is what it is. But anyway, any other closing thoughts you had here?
Probably 1,000, but none that I can think of at the moment.
You'll think of them for next time.
Yes.
But with that, comment below what you thought about this episode. You liked what we had to talk about, didn't? Whatever it is, share for people who think you might like this kind of thing. And with that, thanks for watching.
Mwah.
And that's the end.
Is it off?
No, I gotta just press stop, and I cut
But
off.
you'll
the
cut it
last
off,
90
right.
seconds
Okay.
of whatever happens.
That was long.
It
Are
can be
they
as long as
usually
you
that
want.
long?